Welcome. My name is Aston. I'm the National and Schools Coordinator based in the Trinity Centre for People with Intellectual Disabilities, but I'm also the current chairperson of the Inclusive National Higher Education Forum. I'd like to welcome you all here today to the launch of our strategic plan. I suppose this strategic plan comes at a timely, it's quite timely in the sense that it's off the back of the announcement by the Department of Further and Higher Education of the Pt.1 funding initiative that's linked to the National Access Plan, which was launched last week by Minister Harris and Grange Gorman. Today we're going to look, myself and one of the graduates from UCC, Kevin Walsh, will open the event today. Then we'll hear from Minister Harris himself on that Pt.4 initiative and how it links to the work of INHEF and our goals within our strategic plan. We'll also hear a conversation from some of the INHEF graduates. We'll hear from Shannon O'Farrell-Malloy and from Sive Fian, who are graduates from Waterford and Trinity College, Dublin, respectively. And then we'll hear a word of support from some of our partner agencies, including Derval McDonough, who's the CEO of Inclusion Ireland, Neil McDermott, who is the Senior Manager in the Higher Education Access Department, and Dara Ryder, who's CEO of AHEAD. On the strategic plan and the development of it, a couple of housekeeping items. I'd like to thank Alistair Hodgetts from Polworth Strategy, who helped us develop the strategic plan as a consultant. Sam Whelan-Curtin, who also helped us with the communications aspect and the plain English language that's used within the report. Both of those consultants were a result of the support from Rethink Ireland, the Growth Fund, which was awarded to my own institution, the Trinity Centre for People with Intellectual Disabilities. Also, I really want to pay a huge gratitude and thank you to all my INHEF colleagues from the different universities, institutes of technology and colleges across Ireland who all offer invaluable expertise, but also are always so generous with their time in any of our projects that are going on in INHEF. It is completely voluntary, and I'm so grateful to all of you for your contribution towards this strategic plan, towards all of the work to date and all of the achievements, because there's been a huge amount achieved in the last 4 or 5 years since we set up INHEF. And thank you to my colleagues for that. Also, thank you to our students and graduates who give so generously with their time to tell their stories and to tell the general public, I suppose, about their success in education and where they've gone on afterwards. And we'll hear some of them stories today. The name of our strategic plan is Inclusive Higher Education, the Challenges and Opportunities for Transformative Policy Development. And I suppose we spent a lot of time actually coming up with that title. It wasn't just on a whim. And we wanted to acknowledge that there has been a lot of challenges that we've overcome to date to get to where we're at. But the future is bright, and we want to celebrate that here today. We want it to be a celebration of inclusive post-secondary education. So what is INHEF, or when was it launched? It was launched in 2019 by the then Minister for Higher Education, Mary Mitchell O'Connor. This is a photograph that was taken in Trinity College with the Provost, Patrick Prendergast was the Provost at the time, and some of our founding members here who are on the call today. So the Inclusive National Higher Education Forum, INHEF for short, is a national interest group comprised of representatives of higher education providers and other professionals interested in supporting access routes and inclusive education initiatives to learners with intellectual disabilities in Ireland. So our mission statement and our vision statement can be read here. I'll read them out for anyone who would like to hear them. The mission of INHEF is to provide a collaborative space for consultation between higher education providers with a view to driving strategic developments, informing policy, and building capacity within higher education institutions to establish and deliver initiatives for students who are deemed to have an intellectual disability. And then the vision of INHEF is to embed inclusive education initiatives and alternative access routes into the higher education landscape in the Republic of Ireland, so that students with intellectual disabilities have meaningful post-secondary educational opportunities available to them. So quite an ambitious mission statement and vision statement. And I suppose it's really coming from a human rights perspective towards education and lifelong learning. underpinned by the philosophy that's embedded within the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. These are our core values, and I suppose the first couple of years of setting up and establishing INHEF and getting to know each other were building on these core values that me and all my colleagues within the INHEF group share. And these are inclusion, equality, diversity, equity, respect, and autonomy. And I suppose a lot of these words can be used as buzzwords within society nowadays, but for us, this is what we really wanted to be a part of the INHEF group and the wider networks that we're connected into. Here we have a map, and anyone who was at the HEA Path 4 information session would have seen this yesterday. But here we have a map of the current provision for inclusive post-secondary education provision for students with intellectual disabilities across Ireland. Starting at the top, we have the Dundalk Institute of Technology that offered the Skills for Independent Living course. In DCU, they run the Ability Programme, their Works for Me campus course. Ourselves in Trinity College Dublin offering the Certificate in Art, Science and Inclusive Applied Practice. In TU Dublin, the Blanchardstown campus, then they run the Integrated Education Programme. In Mary Immaculate College Limerick, they have the Certificate in General Learning and Personal Development. In TU Shannon Midwest, which is formerly Limerick IT, they have been running the Certificate in Advocacy, Leadership and Independent Living and the Certificate in Campaigning for Human Rights and Equality for the last number of years. And in Munster Technological University Kerry, formerly known as Tralee IT, they run the Skills for Life programme, a partnership with the St. John of God's service provider down there. In University College Cork, they have reconceptualized their old CCL programme, which Kevin, who is going to speak in a couple of minutes, was a graduate of. And they, as of, I think last week, they had their first intake of students on their new certificate, which is the Certificate in Social Citizenship, and a second certificate in Disability Inclusive Practice. And then lastly on that list, we have Munster Technological University, the Cork School of Music, who have recently established the Inclusive Music Ensemble and the Certificate in Inclusive Performance as well. All of this information will be updated on our website. We're in September at the moment, so we're still in the process of gathering all the updated information of programs that are running this year. But that's a list of those programs for anyone who wanted to find out more about those courses. So within the INHEF network, it's not just members and people who are already running programs. We are a group that wants to facilitate sharing of knowledge and ideas for people so they can set up and establish their own programs as well. So I wanted to acknowledge the work and commitment and the engagement from those colleagues here today through this list, in an entire list of our membership across the country. So moving on to our strategy. So our strategy is placed across 4 themes or 4 areas that you see on the screen here. The first of which is sustainability. And I suppose this was an elephant in the room for a long time, was around sustainability of programs and the funding models that were attached to programs. I suppose the individual programs and their combined activity of INHEF are reliant on funding and resources. Historically, they've relied on philanthropic donations and charity models for funding, and they didn't have any core funding. That's all about to change with the Higher Education Authority and the Department for Further and Higher Education announcing this Path 4 initiative, which phase 2 of that will start in 2023. We'll hear more from the Minister himself and from Neil McDermott from the HEA later on that initiative. But it's the first time within a European context that there has been state funding specifically to support the access routes and engagement of students with intellectual disabilities within higher education. Our second pillar then of our strategy is around quality. And when we say quality, we mean quality programs, quality education, and quality experiences for our students and graduates. As the number of programs is likely to increase with this Path 4 funding over the next couple of years, the quality of those programs will require support. And that's where INHEF feel that we can contribute to the sector and offer the expertise and the learning that's within this group and that this group have been gathering for over 10 years now informally. INHEF members, as I said, have been working for over a decade within this space and can share and I suppose, collaborate with people who are newer to the sector or newer to this area of inclusive post-secondary education, and we can learn from each other in that. I also want to foster a system where we can learn from our students and our graduates, and that they have a voice in how we operate as an INHEF group, but also that they're feeding into their program design using a universal design approach. We have a trusted and collaborative network that we've built on those core principles that you saw earlier. And I suppose we'll hear from some of the INHEF program coordinators and staff at the end during our Q&A session as well. The third pillar then is around awareness. I suppose people with intellectual disabilities are not always aware that higher education is a realistic choice as a post-school destination. So building their awareness, their parents' awareness, the staff that are supporting them either in a school or a service provider, it's critical that they're aware that these opportunities are out there. Public understanding of and support for inclusive education at all levels will also need to be wider and deeper to drive both policy and sustainable long-term funding, as well as to create a society in which people with intellectual disabilities receive support for their choices in making decisions for themselves to participate in higher education or whatever route that they choose. The last one then that is important to us within our strategy is around progression. Higher education, in addition to its inherent value, also provides a means to progress into additional education and employment avenues. We have moved beyond the idea of access of education as solely creating an entry route into an education program, albeit important, but to ensuring that students are successful in their education. Student success can mean very different things to very different students, and we'll hear that from some of our graduates here today. INHEF wants to ensure that students with intellectual disabilities have meaningful progression routes after college to get them to wherever they want to be in their own life. We believe we must achieve these goals in each of these areas in order to advance our mission. And for each goal, we've set out the means by which we will achieve it. Within each area, we have a set amount of planned actions, with these actions often contributing to one or more of these themes within the strategy. And we aspire to achieve all of our goals by the end of the academic year 2024 to 2025. So you've heard a lot from me today. I'm going to introduce you to Kevin Walsh, who is a graduate of the Certificate in Contemporary Living Skills course in UCC. Kevin, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to the Inclusive National Higher Education Forum. Next slide, please, Des. My name is Kevin Walsh. I'm 29 years of age. I live here in Bishopstown in Cork. I've done the Leaving Certificate since 2012. I attended the University College Cork and I did the Certificate in Contemporary Living course from 2012 to 2014. Next. I did the CCL straight after school. All my friends in school were talking about going to college. All I wanted was to be like them. My parents had gone to college before me, and all I wanted was the college experience myself as well. Next. My parents and friends went to college. You have to ask yourself this: why should people with intellectual disabilities be excluded? Next. Inclusivity is included in all aspects of college life. The tutors and lecturers were kind and caring. The student centre was welcoming. The friend groups were supportive. And the clubs and societies in UCC were open and friendly. Next. I was never made to feel different. I was never bullied. I really enjoyed the college life. I'm very proud of my graduation scroll, along with the corresponding photo, which you see in the next slide. Next. And thank you I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I can say thank you very much for for inviting me as one of the past graduates from UCC. And I'll pass the control back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Before we move on, I might just ask you if you had any advice for other people with intellectual disabilities in terms of going to college and making decisions for themselves, what would you advise them?
What I would advise, especially students who have intellectual disabilities, is this: is that anything is possible. Strive to be your best. The opportunity is there. Achieve it, and just aspire to the best as you can. I managed to get through this opportunity in my 29 years, and everyone else can do that too. That's be my advice. Thank you.
It's great advice. And do you want to share with people today what have you done since college? What are you doing now with yourself?
To give all the people an idea behind me is, ever since I left the CCL back in 2014, I went to National Network to progress more, to do more employment opportunities. And then ever since, I did a healthcare assistant course in Cork College of Commerce. And ever since I qualified there, since May last year, I'm now working as a community swabber within South Douglas Road COVID Testing Centre at the moment. And I'm trying to hopefully prove to hopefully people within the HSC and other government organizations that there are people with intellectual disabilities out there like me, and they need the support, they need the help, and they need the encouragement to do it. And that's why I'm hoping that everybody within higher education institutions can help people with intellectual disabilities to achieve their own dreams, achieve their own goals. That's one thing I'll put it to.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So next, we're going to go on to our message from the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, Minister Simon Harris. And we'll go straight into our conversation with some of our graduates then, and we'll hear from Shannon O'Farrell Malloy, who is a graduate from the programme in Waterford Institution of Technology, and then on Sai Fian, who is a graduate of our own programme, the Arts, Science and Inclusive Applied Practice within Trinity College Dublin. And then after that, we will hear from our stakeholders, a message of support from them.